Welcome in to another edition of the Noon Dish. We are once again on Thursday because camp season. I'm Tommy Ashley. That's Don Callahan. The person you came to see is Don Callahan. The people you need to support are Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Take care of them. They take care of us. They take care of all Inside Carolina fans with that 10% off the everyday order. Take a second to click the like button on this YouTube video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not already, and then like and rate, review on the podcast feeds or however you get it. We, of course, kick these to the audio medium as well. So those ratings, those reviews, and all that stuff help bump us up in the algorithms so more and more new fans can come in. Mr. Don Callahan, it is another day that you and I talk. I tell you what, the one thing that is getting to me the most, it's June the 15th already, which is
Yeah, June is
absolutely
flying.
insane. And it feels like we just talked yesterday and it was a week ago. What is happening here?
I don't know. Can I be honest with you for a second?
Are you tired of me already?
No. I was I was watching some Family Feud and I
Right.
get a message with the StreamYard link and I was like, "Why is Tommy sending me this?"
I'm the same way. I'm like typing up.
I'm glad that you remembered. I mean, we talked about it yesterday, so it wasn't like I forgot, but I'm trying to get these stories unloaded. We had some back end issues with some things that I won't get into. I got my daughter hurt her knee. I got to deal with all that. She has to have an MRI. So
Uh-oh.
so I'm dealing with all of that stuff too. So it's been a crazy it's been a crazy month, but definitely the last few days. And then we'll get into it. But I think there was a commitment for 3 days in a row that
Yep.
finally, I shouldn't say finally, but it stopped on Wednesday. That was the first day UNC. This is the second day in a row UNC has not had a commitment from a really big official visit weekend where UNC, I think, made some good progress with all of the official visitors, but clearly 3 in particular they picked up commitments from. So it's been a crazy few days, crazy week, crazy month.
Yeah. So I was on campus yesterday. My youngest going through freshman orientation, which is pretty cool. And I was taking part in that. And I see Don put a story and it says, "Big time Wednesday campus visitor." And I get on my phone and I see this story
Don't
and
say
I'm
who
like,
it is. You can say
I'm,
who you thought it was, but don't say who it is. That's
I'm
top
not going to
secret.
say who it was because you got to be a tar pit premium. But I looked on there and I was like, "You misspelled Tommy Ashley, man." And I texted you and I was like, "What is happening?" But anyway, yeah, a lot of news going on at Carolina, a ton of
Well,
recruiting
so
news.
the information about you visiting was actually on that super premium message board.
Yeah, that was on the $99.99 a month
Yeah.
board that you get. The group chat that you can get on sometimes if you're lucky. But yeah, check out the Inside Carolina Premium Message Boards. Clearly a ton of information. You've been quite busy. Um, First of all, do your podcast award winner. I'll let you handle that
Oh,
because
yes,
I
God,
can't
we
keep up with
forgot.
it.
Mark, is it Kenton?
Yeah, that's how I would say
Okay.
Kintov.
Mark Hinton, this podcast is dedicated to you. You last week, Mark, is he in here yet? Mark, if you're in here, make sure you give us a wave, say hello, whatever it may be. Oh yeah, back end, I was talking about software wise stuff, for us to kind of. I'm sorry, I'm getting off track just because I started reading some of the comments. But anyway, so Mark, MVP last week. This podcast is dedicated to you. Hopefully you're in here. Tom asked about the back end issues. I'm talking about software. I'm talking about things that we kind of rely on to do our jobs, but you're not, when they get fixed, when they're working properly, when they get upgraded, nobody ever notices. But they're still important.
It's kind of like if you hear about it, if you know the names of the officials, they're not doing a
The
good job.
offensive lineman.
Yeah, exactly. If you ever hear an offensive lineman get his name called during a game,
Yes.
it wasn't good by the PA announcer. Which, by the way, has Carolina hired a new PA announcer yet? That is A lot of people have talked about the PA announcer over the year. I saw that position was posted a couple weeks ago. Anyway, Don, let's talk about shout out to Mark. Appreciate you joining. Appreciate everybody that comes in here every week. Um, Later in the show, we'll do top 5 candy bars. It should
Yes.
be a lot less
Controversial.
controversial
We shouldn't fight over this one. I got a
than
little fired
music
up
and pet
last week.
peeves.
But
And I forgot. See,
we
this
need
is why.
rules though. I think we need rules. Like it
Well,
has to be a candy bar. Like because people can go off in different like it can't be Starburst or like
no.
it has to be like chocolate bar, something that you're getting. You can grab a single one of them while you are in the grocery store line.
Yes, yes, like right there beside it, or you're in the gas
Yes.
station.
Yeah,
Has to
gas
be on the
station.
candy bar aisle.
Yeah.
And
But a bar, candy bar, chocolate. I don't want to say just chocolate, but I feel like it probably needs to be chocolate.
it's close enough to chocolate. I like chocolate. And let me chime in last week. I forgot 2 of my pet peeves from last week. This is what happens when you don't write them down. I cannot stand when people say sure. Like if I ask you a question and you say sure, it drives me insane. Don't know why. Never liked it.
Why? Like,
And don't if I text you,
uh-huh.
don't text me back with a simple letter K. I don't like it.
Well, okay.
Okay's better.
Well,
Or yes,
Buck,
sir is even better
I've
for
gotten in
you.
trouble from Buck for saying okay. Um,
I just
yeah,
don't like K or sure.
the whole thing, like the text message etiquette and what drives people crazy in general is just so like it's just so wide open. Like so many people get irritated by so many different things. It's so hard. I would never have thought, like if you said, "Hey, we're going to meet up at this time," and I said, "Sure," I would never have thought that would offend you.
I just don't like it. I've never liked it. I've never. And somebody asked in the chat, do M&Ms count? Yes, I would think M&Ms count.
Okay.
They
All
are
right.
in a pack. They are next to the candy bars.
Okay. Fair enough.
But then again, if we get into that, do Starburst count? I don't know. We'll see what happens when we get to that last part of the show. Don, let's look at your list here. When we last talked, Tim Lawson out of Fort Myers, Florida, sort of a dual athlete, baseball and football, high school player, committed to North Carolina. And like you mentioned, and then 3 days in a row, June 11, 12, and 13th, North Carolina gets 3 levels of the defense
Yeah.
taken care of, or more spots there. So let's go first. Carlos Mitchell, 5'10", 160, defensive back. Mr. Jason Jones, or Coach Jason Jones, listed as his primary recruiter. Tell us a little bit about Mr. Mitchell, another Florida kid. And I'm looking at this list, and Florida is becoming a popular spot for North Carolina to get some recruits. Don, what's Mitchell bring to
So,
the table?
well, I mean, he's just a raw athlete. He's one of those kids who plays at a smaller school in Florida, is the best player on his team. So they use him in a lot of different ways. He's on the high school level, he's probably a lot more valuable as a receiver and return man. Charlton Warren loves to take those sort of guys, take that athleticism, take that speed, and mold them into a defensive back. And that's exactly what he is. The one item I want to hit on with him is he has such a cool recruiting backstory. He reached out to North Carolina. For whatever reason, North Carolina has been his dream school. I tried to kind of pull that out of him. He mentioned seeing them play when he was younger. I can kind of sort of relate to that. I can remember for a while there, I liked the Denver Broncos because I remember seeing John Elway. This is in the 80s. This is way before they won the Super Bowl. I'm not a Broncos fan, but I can remember watching John Elway in the playoffs a couple of seasons. But so it seems like that's kind of like a similar thing where he turned on the TV when he was younger. North Carolina was on, and for whatever reason, he just loved the defense, loved it. And so he reached out to UNC. UNC responded, sent, I think it was Gene Chizik to his school first. That led to Jason Jones coming by the school, which almost immediately led to the scholarship offer, which almost immediately led to this official visit. This was the only official visit that he took, and he committed before it was over. He announced that night that he was, or Sunday night, just hours after returning home that he was committed to North Carolina. So it's just a cool story because everybody has that. Everybody will love to reach out to their dream school and say, hey, please recruit me, give me an opportunity. And that's what he did. That's what he got. And it all kind of fell into place.
We always talk about level of competition. You talked about a smaller school. He's from Lake Wells, Florida. Just sort of, Florida's got a ton of quality recruits every year.
Mm-hmm.
And he's ranked anywhere from, in the mid 60s to whatever you want to look at on the Florida side of it. Nationally, right now, 689, I believe, if I'm looking at it correctly. What about his level of competition? What do you think? I mean, is he a DB for North Carolina? Is that it, or is there a possibility that he could be, he could get to Chapel Hill and mold it or evolve into something else?
So he plays in Polk County, Florida. That's the county he plays in. And a lot of really good recruits have come out of there. The name that pops in my mind immediately is Chad Scott. Played running back at North Carolina, also coached at North Carolina under Larry Fedora. He's now the offensive coordinator at West Virginia. Great dude, great recruiter. I feel like in my time of covering North Carolina, he was probably the most underrated recruiter that UNC has had, and that's primarily because he's not a guy who's super flashy, who's always active on social media and tries to get his name out there and that sort of thing. I think that kind of hurts him a little bit from a reputation standpoint. But if you look at some of the top recruits that Larry Fedora landed, Chad was involved with a lot of that. We talk about Antoine Green, talk about William Barnes, really anyone from that central Florida sort of area, he was heavily involved with just because he knows that area. But anyway, that central area of Florida produces a lot of great players, including, specifically that Polk County, Florida. So he's not, so there have definitely been good players to come out of his area.
Gotcha. Second up, great name, Cruz Law. Tell us about that recruitment. Tell us about the package deal that's there, because it's interesting. Because I just had a conversation with another sport at North Carolina, and his name may or may not have come up. But at any rate, Cruz Law, Nashville, Tennessee.
You got me intrigued now.
I always think about country music when I talk about Nashville. Tell us about Mr. Law. It sounds like a law firm.
Yes.
And I had a friend of mine back in college days that had similar last name as that first name. What does he bring to the table? Tommy Thigpen, primary recruiter, dropped on the 12th of June, 6'1", 218-ish. Go.
Yeah, so when you Google his name, you do have to kind of bypass a couple of law firms in order to find his 24/7 account or his Huddle profile. But his recruitment changed dramatically. I guess it was in April when his brother decided to enter the transfer portal. His brother was a scholarship player on Vanderbilt's baseball team, and you would know better than me, Vanderbilt. Well, just tell me what sort of level Vanderbilt, their program in baseball?
Elite.
Okay.
They're SEC. They've been very good for. My thing is if you can play for Vanderbilt, you can play, and that's what was intriguing to me to hear that connection and that package deal there going on. But more on Cruz, and then tell us about the brother.
Yeah, so basically his brother Cade entered the transfer portal, and so Cruz decided, I want to play with my brother. Basically, his brother wanted to play football, miss football, and so he wanted to go in the portal specifically to find a preferred walk-on opportunity to play football. So Cruz says, okay, I want to play with my brother. And he actually, in the Q&A that we ran the other day, mentions he used the word pissed. He said he was pissed when his brother decided to play baseball at Vanderbilt because he wanted to play football with him in college. And so once this opportunity kind of opened up, he decided, hey, I'm only going to look at schools who are going to allow my brother to walk on. And that narrowed it down to North Carolina. Vanderbilt was still open to that idea, and Kentucky. Ultimately, though, he's a kid who education is very, very important to him. He goes to a very challenging academic high school in Nashville. And so ultimately narrowed down to Vanderbilt in North Carolina. He made a bunch of visits to Chapel Hill. It makes sense to make a bunch of visits to Vanderbilt because that's in his hometown. But I'm thinking he visited during the season, and then I think it was twice in the spring, and then obviously came back for the official visit, and that just sealed the deal. He called me right when he got home, and kind of told me, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And so he was, I think they kind of knew. Well, he says that he didn't know heading into that visit, but I think I think it was kind of in his head a little bit. North Carolina was going to be difficult to beat.
So, breaking in here, we need a ruling on the top 5 list. Do Reese's peanut butter cups count?
I think they do.
I think they count. So,
Yeah, I
Tori,
think.
they count.
Yeah, no, I think they count. So, what can you share anything with us on the baseball angle with this?
No, no, I mean, not as it relates to playing at UNC or anything like that, but I mean, I was asked, "What's the deal?" I mean, is he strictly going to play football or whatever? And I was going on based on Don Callahan's recruiting. It sounds like he's going to play football at North Carolina's preferred walk-on. Do you know anything about Cade's ability on the football field?
So he was I believe, so only 247 ranked him, and they ranked him a very, very low 3-star quarterback. He did have scholarship offers from Air Force and Akron. So that's I understand that's not Power 5, but it's still impressive,
Yeah.
But it was at quarterback. He wants to, from what Cruz told me, that his brother Kay is going to play linebacker. They're going to play linebacker together. And so you got to think, looking at Air Force, looking at Akron, probably, a hard-nosed sort of guy. Watched a little bit of his film, but not much. So, but I mean, we're talking about a preferred walk-on sort of thing. And 95, if not higher, percent of those guys we end up not really talking about them much beyond their enrollment.
Yeah, I was going to ask you,
But maybe this is an exception. Okay.
but you always run a story leading up to the season about the preferred walk-ons and their
Yes.
additions or whatever. Let people like you and I could go walk out there. I mean, theoretically, we could walk on. What's the difference in a preferred walk-on, just for people that may not know or may not understand that process?
So I always give the caveat about the rules because the rules change. And even before the rules change, when someone explains to me, I'm never confident that I have like a great grasp on the rules. But anyway, football players, they don't like a scholarship football player when they apply at North Carolina through admissions, they don't have the same academic requirements that a quote unquote normal student or a non-athlete student would have to enroll at North Carolina. The preferred walk-ons get that benefit of the scholarship player, and so they fall underneath those academic requirements, which obviously makes it a little bit easier for them to get in. Also, they're guaranteed a spot on the roster, so to speak. But that's
Yeah. We don't have and this is not North Carolina specific, so I don't want to
yeah.
pin it right. But it's like we don't because you see a lot of preferred walk-ons, local schools and local kids get preferred walk-ons opportunities. But come on out, we want you to play for us. We don't have a scholarship for you right now, but we'd like you to be a part of the team. And of course, the possibility is always Don Callahan getting breaking news right there on his phone right now. I've asked him repeatedly to turn off the sounds during this podcast. It does not
Is
work.
that one of your pet peeves?
Yeah, that's
No, this
another
is
one.
like this. I mean, I'm gonna have to. That's the radiology people, so I got to handle that as soon as I get off here.
Okay, well, if you need to take a break, I can
No,
carry
we're
it.
good.
No,
We're
I'm
good.
joking. I can't carry it. This is
We're
all the
we're
Don
good.
Callahan show. You listen to Noon Dish. It is Wednesday. No, it's not. It's Thursday.
It
And
is
I have a
Thursday.
feeling that Thursday might be the spot because we're getting some good crowds coming in here on Thursdays. But we'll go back to
What are we up to? So
Wednesdays.
I can't see on here.
50 plus.
Can you?
50 plus people are listening to Don Callahan hash on North Carolina recruiting right at the moment. You
Okay.
can't see it. I can see it because I'm in
Where do you?
control of the board.
Okay. Yeah, I can't see the number. I get to see people responding, talking in here, which is great. Preston had a good comparison. Chaz Surratt, part 2,
Valid.
comparing Cade Law. So,
Well, let's go on to commitment number 3 of the week. Curtis
okay.
Simpson, 6'4", 200-pound guy, defensive lineman. Dare I say edge rusher?
Yes.
Tell us about him.
So I think a good, but maybe not 100%, or definitely not 100% accurate comparison, and probably because they both play from the same county in North Carolina, is Malachi Hamrick. Long guys who definitely need to add some weight, but tall and explosive coming off the edge. Now, the difference I would say is for Shelby, when Malachi played for Shelby, he was more of a defensive weapon, and the Shelby coaches were great at putting him at a lot of different positions to kind of exploit the opposing offense. Kings Mountain with Curtis Simpson just basically puts him on the edge, and they have 2 really good edge rushers. They have another guy that we may talk about a little bit for the 2025 class on the other end, but they basically just send those 2 guys off the edge and attack the quarterback. So he is definitely your kind of prototypical edge rusher. So if he were to go to a defense as a 4-3, he's going to play that weak side defensive end. If he were to go to a defense as a 3-4, he'd be that stand-up outside linebacker on the weak side. For North Carolina, he's going to come in as that jack position guy who, is mostly going to just try to apply pressure on the quarterback on passing downs, but does have the ability to drop into coverage to kind of disguise some things. He, just like with Carlos, there wasn't a whole lot to, his recruitment. I mean, he received a bunch of offers, particularly early on. Auburn, I think Mississippi State, Appalachian State. There was a bunch of other schools. North Carolina offered, though, and it completely altered his recruitment. And he even admitted in our Q&A that we ran a couple days ago that it was basically a done deal once he got the North Carolina scholarship offer, mostly because of the way the coaches kind of handled the situation leading up to that. They didn't, let me try to see when, they didn't offer until, I think it was only like a couple months ago. So it wasn't like North Carolina. Oh, actually, it was late March, which, considering the times, that's relatively late in the process. But the way the staff kind of handled his recruitment prior to that, I think he really appreciated. They were very honest with him, saying, "Hey, be patient. We're looking at this. We're checking out this. You're still on our board and all that sort of stuff." So when it came time to offer, it was smooth sailing. And he said that when he got the offer, that was probably where he was going to end up, but he wanted to spend some more time on the campus, wanted to get to know the coaches a little bit better. He was able to do that. He attended the spring game and then obviously came back for the official visit. He didn't schedule any other official visits. So it was pretty obvious just where his mind was at. And so he was another one who he committed over the weekend. He didn't have an exact plan on when he wanted to announce. He actually at one point considered waiting until July to announce. UNC doesn't like that so much. So I think they kind of convinced him to do things a little bit sooner. And so he just picked, I guess it was Wednesday when he did his, or Tuesdays when he did his. So, and that just worked out for him. He did a 7-on-7 tournament that morning with Kings Mountain and then committed right afterwards.
So Gene Chiswick listed as his primary recruiter on your board. So how many is that? Is that 17?
Yes, I think so.
I think I could count. So let me ask a question that was posed on the message board, and I think it's a valid question, and certainly one I want you to expound on. Spotty on the boards ask, is it, I'll paraphrase, but they're filling up too fast, quote unquote. Is that a thing? Obviously, we've talked about getting classes done going into the season. North Carolina stands at 17 now. Attrition, all that other stuff works out in the end. But is this coming on too fast for North Carolina, or is this something that Mack Brown likes to get done so they can concentrate on other things or move forward later in the fall into the actual football season?
Yeah. So I think there's 2 things with this. The first thing is that the calendar, as I kind of mentioned when I was talking about UNC offering in late March being somewhat late for Curtis Simpson, the calendar has sped up so much that it's not just North Carolina. Most schools will have the majority of their class committed before the end of the summer, and that's by design, because that's just how things are going. Guys are taking their official visits in June, and you know if that's the meat of your recruitment, then what's the need to wait later? I mean, yes, there will be guys that UNC will continue to recruit into the season, and really, to be honest, with this class in particular, if it unfolds the way that we're expecting, there's a very good chance that UNC is done. It may not add anyone beyond August, to be honest. So UNC is not loading up too fast. And what it is, if you look at Inside Carolina's recruiting board, you'll see, I mean, these are the guys UNC is targeting. And so I think the other aspect, the part two of that, which the question that you're referencing, was kind of implying that would North Carolina be better off holding scholarships so that when, if and when they have a really good season, that could help them. The problem with that is who are you going to be recruiting? Because most of these guys are going to be committed, and the guys who aren't committed have it narrowed down to a group of schools that they have been looking into for 6+ months. It's going to be near impossible to get in with those guys. A lot of those guys that you would want UNC to get in with, those guys are looking at Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, that sort of thing. No matter how good of a season North Carolina can go undefeated, and it's going to be difficult to compete with Georgia, Clemson, Alabama, who have a huge lead on you. So, so that's kind of the issue with all of this. And on top of that, how deep in the season are we talking to where you can say, okay, North Carolina is having a good year? You know what I mean? So is it, I mean, what September, October, when they have a few game, whatever it may be. I mean, it's just so difficult to say, and you're just getting later and later. It's just the calendar no longer permits you to really do what this person has kind of expecting. What this season will do will set the stage for the next class, and what the perception of, because we talk about perception, we talk about prestige, whatever the word we used. This season is going to help with that next class, with that perception for those recruits and the class beyond that too. But this class, their perception of North Carolina is basically set in stone.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because everybody says, a team shouldn't fill up too fast. Well, folks are committing somewhere. And to
Yeah.
your point, and I think is the best point in the whole segment there is, if North Carolina waits, the pool becomes much thinner and much smaller there in the end. So it is a fascinating balance. But if you're getting who you're targeting, and you're getting, you're going down your board and you're knocking off guys and pulling in guys that you are targeting, regardless of what the rankings say, then you're doing it the way it works for you and you're having success for your team. But yeah, all schools are trying to get things done, and then the portal adds just another it's insane aspect to it and all that stuff. We're talking with Don Callahan. It's a noon dish. It is Thursday, about 12:30. I'm going to talk about Johnny T-shirt, johnnytshirt.com right fast. They're sponsors of this podcast. I do it all the time. I always go to Chapel Hill, and I always go to Johnny T-shirt. So take care of them as they take care of us. Get all your needs. It's summertime, so you can get plenty of shorts, T-shirts, hats. If you're like me, you need all the hats you can get. As hot as it gets in North Carolina especially, so visit them. And if you can't get here, or if you live elsewhere, order it online. JohnnyT-shirt.com, man. They have the best customer service you can get in person, but they also have great customer service online. Ship it straight to your door. Take care of them. Inside Carolina Premium people that are, if you're not a member and you're watching this podcast, first of all, join Inside Carolina Premium, but you also get that nugget of getting 10% off your Johnny T-shirt orders. Going to take a break for the national guys on the audio version. Be right back with Don Callahan on the noon dish. All right, Don. It is.
I got a question for you. Your
Okay.
ad read.
Let me
Your ad
bring
read.
this back in. This is
Okay,
the
bring
noon
it back
dish
in.
sponsored by Johnny T-shirt. Don Callahan has a question. Yes, sir.
So your ad read kind of brought this to my mind. So do you get sunburn on your head?
Yes.
How, like, is it bad? Like, how
I
bad is
have
it?
I have nuked it,
Oof.
but I also will put lotion on my head and on my ears, especially. You can't see them in these, and the bridge of the nose. But this head has been beaten
Oof.
severely over the years. But yes, I have a big old sombrero hat. The rich or the Richardson hats, the inside Carolina hat that I have, it'll leave a spot back on the back. So I am a big time put lotion in the basket and put it on the head guy. And
Ah, gotcha.
we're on all blessed with all that, cabbage you got on your
I
head.
got some thick hair, which so I had to keep it low or else it is terrible. I have the opposite problem. My hair grows a little bit, then it's like it's sweat and everything. It's terrible.
Yeah,
But yeah, I
I
don't have
do
to
not.
worry.
I don't need hair on my head. I enjoy it being bald. It's a quick fix, and yeah, slap some lotion up there and keep it on. But do not forget the lotion, because you will get peeling and you look like a lizard. Let's talk about recruiting some more. You mentioned that North Carolina could potentially be filled up by August. Um, who else is in the crosshairs? Ton of official visits this past weekend. They've reaped those benefits. When you look at North Carolina's recruiting as it stands now on targets, what would you have to say about it, Mr. Callahan?
About what?
About North Carolina recruiting right now as it stands?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
You see, you're not paying attention to me. I asked these
well, I'm looking.
convoluted questions.
Walter Harris here has a great question, but I'll definitely. So yeah, I think North Carolina headed into June with their with their board, right? And if you follow Inside Carolina, read the Weekly Scoop, we did a really good job with the June official visits primer that we posted. That was the last Weekly Scoop. We haven't been able to do a whole lot of weekly scoops just because, one, a lot of the stuff is covered in the post and pre official visit posts that we make or stories that we come out with. And then also, UNC's having a bunch of official visitors and people want to know what those guys are saying. So we've had to run those stories first and foremost. But anyway, if you've been following that stuff, the Weekly Scoop, we kind of laid it out. I mean, really, North Carolina has been hitting on the guys that they want. If you remember last year, UNC did not have as much success with the offensive line in June and had to kind of change their I guess plans for the offensive line. This class, every position UNC is hitting on their guys. It might not be the 4 stars like a lot of the posters want, but they're hitting on guys that are on their board that they like a lot. They are in position to where they have stopped recruiting certain kids or didn't bring them in, which is kind of leads to Walter's question. But yeah, I mean, really, they're landing the guys that they needed to land. And I mean, there's still some obstacles. Alex Taylor is one of them. There's some guys in that final weekend that are going to be pretty big. But beyond that, I mean, and so we have to kind of see how those things happen. But so far, so good.
I'll ask you Walter Horn's question. It says, notice in a recent article, Don had a comment that the staff had stopped recruiting player X because they feel good about player Y and Z. How does that process work when schools back off from a player? And how do you massage it so that you don't back off a player and piss them off or, disappoint or you know, make his high school coach or his whatever? How does that usually work? What is the ideal scenario to handle that for school?
So I know you don't like this answer, but it is by a case by case
By
basis.
case basis.
And so if you get a situation, let's say I'm going to take the Nate Palmer kid, the running back from Texas, who had talked about officially visiting North Carolina this month, had 4 official visits scheduled, I think it was, and then was going to try to squeeze in a UNC official visit. With that situation, you don't have the official visits scheduled. You just kind of make sure it doesn't get brought up. You probably don't call him nearly as much. You don't, maybe you text him, but you just stay away from the whole official visit conversation. If it gets brought up, that's when it gets a little bit dicey. But you be honest with them, and say, hey, look, we have a running back committed. And I don't know what exactly was said. This is just me speculating. I want to be clear. This is me speculating on what could potentially happen. You say, hey, look, we have one committed. We have some other guys that have already scheduled official visits. We're just going to kind of focus on those guys. A lot of these situations, it just kind of works out. It just kind of works out for, because it's not like that kid has other opportunities, and he obviously is much more interested in the 4 schools he has scheduled official visits with. So it just kind of naturally just happens. And it's not this big, it's not like you're breaking up with your girlfriend sort of thing. Now, there are situations where you bring a kid in and it came for an official visit. I'm not going to name any names because I don't want anyone to think what I'm saying I'm actually reporting. I'm just kind of speculating and trying to give a general sort of example. But let's say you have a kid comes in for an official visit, and for whatever reason you decide this kid's not a fit. A lot of that you lean on the relationships. It might be a conversation you have with the recruit. That's probably the preferred way, but it might be better to also get an adult involved, like particularly a high school coach or a trainer or whoever is very active with that recruit to kind of ease and explain, hey, look, it's just going to be better for both of us. This is not going to work, sort of thing, and you just have to kind of explain it. And high school coaches, I think, are, for the most part, are pretty realistic and are pretty honest and pretty understanding. If you say, hey, look, we like him, he's great on film, but he just doesn't fit in our program. And I think they understand that. And in a lot of cases, you'll see schools like North Carolina that will kind of help that kid with other opportunities as far as reaching out to somebody else, sort of thing. A lot of these situations where these kids just start losing a lot of opportunities, you find, poof, this school came out of nowhere and that's where they're going. Well, usually that's kind of helped by one of the schools that are no longer recruiting that kid. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, you answer it. And Preston from G Wagon compares it to the Dayton game, and it kind of is, except that last part.
Yeah.
Because you don't put people on the roster and help them find other guys. In the aspect of the Dayton game. But it is a fascinating thing, though, that you have to navigate, because if you push somebody away and then you need them later, I mean, it's all about relationships. That's what
there's a balancing act. If you look at, like, there's a lot of kids who have, how many of these kids have like 40 offers, 30, 40 offers, and then they only take official visits to 2 schools. Like, clearly, so what happened with those schools? Well, those schools kind of, they stopped calling as much. They didn't bring up the official visits. And if you bring up official visits, they might push it and say, well, let's wait until the fall, that sort of thing. And then if, it's just like dating a girl, you kind of, if you're talking to a girl, like, hey, you want to go out for a date this weekend? They say, oh, I can't, my parents are in town. Hey, you want to go have a date this weekend? And you keep on getting no. Eventually you're going to stop calling her and asking her to come, and so there's a little bit of that involved. Or maybe she's really nice and just says, hey, look, it's not you, it's me, sort of thing.
Exactly, man. That is so funny. I was fixing to say the exact same. It's not you. It's us. It's me. All right, let's get this out. Anything else on the recruiting trail we need to? Because you are clearly a busy man. I hear Mario hitting the things and lighting the candle a lot. I'm going to get you one of those. I saw it on TikTok or Instagram or something, those Mario lights, where you can turn the light on and it makes that sound. I'm going to get you one of those for Christmas.
Yeah, if I could, this weekend, not nearly as big because of Father's Day, but UNC will have a handful of official visitors. We have a preview up for this weekend that kind of goes into detail on who's coming in, where else they've been, and also some additional information, kind of what I think Walter was talking about. A couple guys at North Carolina is no longer recruiting, so definitely check that out. We'll have updates on those official visitors following the following weekend. And then the following weekend is going to be North Carolina's really big weekend. probably looking at double-digit official visitors. It's hard to say that exactly because if you've been paying attention to this stuff, you'll see a lot of guys are committing other places, or North Carolina's moving on. They've already pulled one guy from that weekend. So, but it's going to be, there are some major targets coming that last weekend. Alex Taylor, Jordan Shipp. God, I know there's more and I can't think of off the top of my head, but a lot of big time targets are coming that final weekend, which is going to be pretty, Keenan Jackson. So it's going to be pretty big. So definitely make sure you're locked into Inside Carolina, because every day we have stuff going on there.
Yeah, there is no off season, especially not this time of year for Don Callahan. Check out Tar Pit Premium Message Board. It is loaded. If you had to find one name on that board the most, I'd say it's Don Callahan's, as he's reporting everything you need to know about the official visits and all that. And of course, we'll talk about it. I don't know if we're going to have a noon dish next week, though. I don't see that happening because I'll be in Southern California. But we might figure it out. We'll do something. Anyway,
what day are you leaving?
I'm leaving at 5:00 a.m. from the airport on Saturday and returning at
This Saturday?
yeah, and then returning
wow.
in the middle of the night the following Friday. So,
Oof.
and I can't see me doing a noon dish at 9 a.m. in California, but maybe we'll figure it out.
Well, the problem too is UNC has a camp on Wednesday and Thursday. And so, so we might not. I don't know what we're going to do.
We're
We'll
gonna get
definitely
back.
have one.
We're gonna not have one next week, and then
Yeah, and then we'll definitely have a big one the following week to recap the big official visit weekend. I think that's fine too. We won't be able to preview it too much, but Inside Carolina will have a preview up heading into that weekend, and then you and I will definitely kind of recap that, and then also the Showtime camp, which would be pretty big. I'm going to try to convince you to come out there with me.
I'm all about being convinced. So you're gonna have to work on that. See if you can recruit me to your calls.
That's what your wife says.
She doesn't. Yeah. Top 5 list: candy bars. We ruled that Reese's cups do count. M&Ms do count. I've already got a ton of.
I have my
stuff.
top 5.
Well, I don't have my top 5 written down, but because I never do, I'm gonna go first with Miss Christine Bird. Pops up Snickers. I would give a plus sign to Milky Way, a negative sign to Baby Ruth, Reese's Cup, Hershey's bars with almonds. Can't argue against those. Very good choice there.
Yeah.
Preston will get in here. He's always got jokes, but can't hate on the last joke. Twix, Heath Bar, whatchamacallits. Man, that's a blast from the past. I used to love those things. And the last bite of anything eaten by Brooke Burke. Whatever happened to her? I hadn't seen her lately. Let's go up to Thomas. Zero. Does that zero thing have coconut in it?
I don't think I've ever had them, but I'm a big coconut person, so I'm interested.
I'm not interested. Hershey bar, Snickers, Baby Ruth, and a Hershey Crackle. Isn't that basically a Nestle bar with the rice in it, or the Rice Krispies? Wanda Hunter, Heath Bar, Mounds. That's another coconut thing, I think. Almond Joy, Baby Ruth, and M&Ms. Solid effort there. Solid choices. I'm losing my battle here.
I love all the. We have a lot of submissions this week.
Yeah, people get into candy now. Money Mark, Snickers, Twix, Carmelos. I don't know if I've ever had that.
They're good. Yeah.
Baby Ruth, and what's a Chunky?
Never heard of Chunky, but the Carmelos are the little, like you unroll them and.
Is it a Rolo?
Oh no, that's a Rolo. Yeah, Carmelo, I guess, is just like another bar, kind of similar to a Milky Way, maybe.
Pulling my teeth out. Hershey bar, Billy Collins, Hershey bar with almonds, yes. Snickers, yes. Reese's cups, yes. Zero again. Baby Ruth. I think Baby Ruth might be winning this. And
that's interesting.
Tori Cook, Snickers Payday. That's a good candy bar, non-chocolate. 1,000 grand, 100,000 grand. I love those things. Good call. Reese's Cups and M&M peanuts. So what is yours?
Well, first, did Mark ever come in?
Yes, he chimed in.
Did he really?
He did.
Is he aware of him? Is he aware that he is the MVP of last week? Oh, there he is. All right. Yes. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
Mark.
So my top 5 in order. Number 5, Almond Joy. I like the coconut, but it sounds like you do not.
I do not do coconut. I'll
I
eat a coconut, um, like off the tree, but I do not like processed coconut.
Do you have coconut trees like nearby
I
in
mean, when I've gone
Clayton?
some, look, my mom, rest in peace, used to make the most wonderful coconut cake ever that was talked about across the land, and I never tasted it because I don't do coconut. That's how much I despise coconut.
So
No offense, though.
Walter is correcting us and said there's no coconut in the zero bar.
What is it? Okay. I just don't know if I know what a zero bar is.
I've seen it in the store. I have never eaten one though. So all right. So number 4 for me, Butterfinger. Even though they get all in your teeth, but very good. I'm sure they are a dentist nightmare. Number 3, Twix. Definitely like a Twix. And number 2, Snickers. Like a Snickers. And for me, number 1, Reese's peanut butter cups. I love Reese's anything, to be honest, but I just went peanut butter cups. Do you ever, they have the king size, right? That are
Yeah.
what, 4, I think. And then have you seen some of the grocery stores have that big, I don't even know what they call it. I can't remember. They do have a specific name for it. That it's like 25 cups.
Have you ever been to Cracker Barrel and seen like the 10-pound candy bars that they'll sell?
No.
And it's like a Reese's cup that's like part of it looks like it's in a bucket because it's so much. You know what's wild about that? I do
What's that?
not like peanut butter. I'll eat a
Really?
little bit of peanut butter
I
on a
like peanut butter.
PB&J, but I love some Reese's cups.
Well, it is different. It doesn't taste like pure peanut butter. There is a
Yeah.
different flavor. Because
So
if you ever had like a generic peanut butter cup, way different than Reese's.
yeah. I mean, anyway, Heath bars. That's near the top of my list. Maybe
Okay.
the top.
Of course, Tommy doesn't even have an organized list.
I don't do that. I do
Oh,
not prepare. If there's is anybody faulting me? Is anybody criticizing my content?
I am criticizing
I do like a
you.
Snickers.
You and your backup parking.
We used to, we used to. There was a place. Shout out Carroll Pharmacy down at the end of the road where we grew up. We would walk barefoot every day, and I'd go and charge me a king size Heath bar, or no, excuse me, king size Hershey bar, big giant ones. So that's 3. Um, it's in a blue wrapper, Nestle. Nestle, it's a chocolate bar, but I don't know what it's called. I feel terrible. Hold on.
Oh God, preparation.
There it is. Hold on.
Is it a
It's a Nestle Crunch. That's
Crunch?
it.
Yeah.
Love those things. And then so that's 4. And then I'm debating whether to put Twix on that list. You remember Score Bar? That was kind of like Heath Bar. Do I put Twix on that list?
Well,
No,
what's
I'm
your
going.
favorite? If you're going into
All right, here's my top 5. I got it.
okay,
100,000 grand. Love them frozen, the mini ones. Freeze them. Nestle Crunch, Heath Bar, Baby Ruth, and I'll go whatchamacallit. I used to love those things. Those are
so
my
if
5.
you are in the grocery store right now and you're gonna grab a quick snack before you get out of there, what are you grabbing?
Heath Bar.
Okay,
I
interesting.
love some Heath Bar.
All right. I've been, this is not a candy bar, but I've been loving some Tasty Cake. They're honey buns, but with chocolate on top.
Dude,
Those
why
things are
don't you just go
heavenly,
ahead and pump grease and
dude.
fat
Hey,
straight
you know
into
what?
your
Hey, you know
veins?
what's coming up, right? You know what's coming
What?
up?
Your
Father's Day,
funeral from eating that
which
stuff?
means, which means, uh, which means, so the only thing I want, and Ross, this is something you're gonna have to learn. Ross already knew. I get my Krispy Kreme donuts. I'm supposed to get a dozen. I never get a dozen. People always eat from them, but I say, what they say, what do you want for Father's Day? I say a dozen donuts for me. They give me the box of dozen donuts, but everybody has taken a donut out of there, so it's no longer a dozen. This is Christmas. This is birthday. It's terrible. But anyway, so I will get some Krispy Kreme donuts on Sunday, which will be
Are
nice.
you a Krispy Kreme, obviously, over Dunkin'?
So we had this discussion on the message board. In theory, Dunkin' can be better. In practice, it's not even close. And the reason is that you get the most terrible workers at Dunkin' Donut all the time. They leave their donuts sitting out the entire time. I think they only make them in the morning. The
Sounds
other
like the
thing
pet peeve show continued.
the other thing is like I feel like up north, one of the things is that we would go into a Dunkin' Donuts at like 3:00 in the morning and get donuts. I don't feel like they're open 24 hours, at least anywhere that I've seen Dunkin' Donuts here. The one irritating thing with the Krispy Kreme, because the one right around the corner from my house, it closes. I can't remember what time it closes, but if you go in there like an hour before close, they're not making any more donuts, which kind of pisses me off. Or you get a very limited selection. So
Man, give that man his donuts.
yeah, give me my donuts.
There's a place, I can't remember the name of it, but down in Harnett County, it's a mom and pop that makes the best donuts ever.
Really? See, that's
Uh,
not that far from me. So where you got to find out where that is.
yeah, I can't call. I want to say it's Sally's or something. I'm not 100% sure what the name is, but the folks at work used to bring them. And then there's a couple places around here. They're not donuts, but they're little croissants, and they're stuffed with whatever you want in it, chocolate and whatever's call it. We don't need to go there. But yes, if I'm buying store bought and like chain donuts, I'm a Krispy Kreme person, though I do like the chocolate cake glazed ones at Dunkin'. Anyway, anything left? Any meat on this bone?
No, well, I broke up with Duncan. This has been a couple years now, so no, I
Oh,
don't.
so you got in a fight with Dunkin' and said you're
Yeah,
never going back.
yeah, and so them and Burger King, I told the manager there I was never coming back, and this was when I was in high school, and I've not. Now I've had someone bought Burger King and said, "Hey, you want this burger?" I've eaten it, but I have never myself gone to a Burger King because I thought that they're king size. I was like, "This is really the king size, like, of fries? Like, I mean, come on now." So and he was like, "No, this is king size." I'm never coming here again. So I never did. That's way back in high school. But the Dunkin' is a little bit more recent, just a couple years ago, but I have not been to Dunkin' since then.
You know what I haven't been to
What's that?
in a long time? I haven't eaten Bojangles chicken in months. And I love Bojangles, so I guess we're similar there, but I didn't go in there and make
Well,
a
I've been in
stand
yeah.
and say, "I'm never coming here again, but if you bring it to my house, I'll eat it."
Well, that's just what Dunkin'. Yeah, so I've tried to even though you think I'm gonna die tonight from my arteries being clogged, I have stopped with the fast food as much as possible. It's so difficult when you're on the road a bunch and then you have like a limited time to get from point A to point B. It's so much easier to go through drive-through. But I have tried to as much as possible stop with the fast food stuff. But I love the Cajun filet sandwich from Bojangles and the fries.
Yeah, I can't argue with you there. I just can't do the chicken anymore. The old stomach does not hold up. So that brings us to our top 5. We're gonna
Emphasis
get
on
out of here.
old.
Yeah, focus on we're gonna get out of here in the with 5 minutes left and talk about next week's top 5. Top 5 fast food restaurants.
Okay.
We're going there. If you can get your food in the car and
Has to
not
be
have to go in
drive-through.
and sit down,
Has to be a
then it's
drive-through.
considered fast food.
Yes.
All right. That's Don Callahan. I'm Tommy Ashley. It's been the noon dish on a Thursday. Ton of recruiting news. That news continues on Tar Pit Premium message boards and over at Inside Carolina. Make sure you check it out. Subscribe, rate, review, all the good stuff. Most importantly, follow Don Callahan on those message boards and get all his scoop. I'm sure there's plenty more to come. Shout out to the 50, 60 plus folks that have been here. It's always a pleasure to interact with you guys. Top 5 fast food restaurants for the next time we get back together, I guess in 2 weeks. A monster show. It might go 2 hours, so take a long lunch break. We'll be back on the noon dish in a couple weeks. That's Don. I'm Tommy. It's been Inside Carolina. Thank you, Mr. Callahan.
Thank you, Mr. Tommy.